appropriate.
Hey everybody, Lexie here. First off, before I say anything else, I just want to thank everybody behind organizing the Mushroom City Arts Festival. This is my first time participating. I'm located in the Ecuadorian Amazon, and so I'm really grateful to be here virtually and to see all the other presenters for the first time. And so thanks for the invitation. I'm currently located at oil drill number 26, which Texaco installed in the 1960s in the northeastern Amazon of Ecuador, in Lago Agrio. And this is where my in-laws' land is located, which is a reforestation project in the middle of a sea of deforestation for resource extraction, cattle ranching, increasing agriculture industry. And so I just want to take y'all on a little tour. Okay, just a quick pause on the tour. Now that we're in a more comfortable space, give you a little update. So welcome to Amisacho, and this is the work of my in-laws over the past 12 years to restore degraded lands from what was once cattle pastures, and now it's just turned into this refuge of native flora and fauna and communities and events and celebrations. And so I just want to give you a little personal tour and take you on down into the laboratory where my partner Luis and I do a little bit more of our research into soil regeneration and for living soils and also living foods and homemade medicines. And this is where we do a lot of our courses and hands-on practical experiences with communities, surrounding communities. And so let's go on a tour. Before we continue on our tour, do you hear this chainsaw? Yeah, that one. And I just want to give you just a glimpse of the ongoing threats of the Amazon and the indigenous communities and the reality that they are facing to defend their territories as colonizers continue to expand their land and claiming land titles, as resource extraction and mining continue to open up new roads throughout their ancestral territories, which opens up land to colonizers and farmers and cattle ranching and monocultures. And so you can just imagine the rate that we're losing the Amazon, right? What produces the world's oxygen, what produces the world's humidity and rain. And so when we see the Amazon in flames, we're literally talking about climate change and droughts. The Amazon actually produces its own rain. The trees, through transpiration, provide their own rain. And so I don't know if you've ever heard of, what's it called? Like the flying river. But it's the trees that produce this flying river, an aerial river. But if you cut down the trees, then who's going to produce that river, aerial river, which distributes humidity and rain to California? So then rain doesn't fall in California when there's fires and we need it most. Anyways, let's get back to the tour. other side of this stream is our jungle laboratory. But this stream that we're crossing is downriver of the state-owned oil company, about 2 kilometers downriver. So it's an extremely contaminated river. We get lots of bottles and diesel canisters and whatnot thrown down this river. But interestingly enough, this river is full of caiman and river otters. So if they can live in this river, that gives me hope. And I let them jump out of the river and steal tilapias just because they deserve it. So crossing the river, welcome to the jungle laboratory. So we built this laboratory to complement the reforestation project and investigate and demonstrate and teach different ways to take advantage of and utilize the diversity that the Amazon provides. So one of the things that we explore is mushroom cultivation. We're the first mushroom cultivators at this level of the Amazon, at this altitude, 300 meters of the Amazon. And it's quite a tricky thing. Here in this climate, mold grows on everything, and slime molds and all different types of other competitors. They grow on your scale and in your flow hood. But so, you gotta start to think about how mushrooms grow in the jungle anyways. So a lot of times we try and take mushroom cultivation outside the laboratory and get into the more low technology and cold fermentation and just kind of cardboard expansion, low tech methods for mushroom cultivation. And so in the field of mycology, we cultivate mushrooms for food, medicine, and soil regeneration. So let's start outside. So Luis, being a mechanic, converted mycologist, has built this, I guess it's more like an ultra pasteurizer, where we can put a gauge up here and elevate the pressure. And so this pressure cooker connects to a tube, and we put our mushroom substrates inside this bigger tank, and we're able to lock it down with a bunch of C-clamps and elevate the pressure slightly. And so this helps us when we're making mushroom bags for medicine, and in this case we do take it into the laboratory, into more of a sterile space to cultivate. So this design, I wouldn't necessarily try at home, but it's what we use for our pasteurization of different substrates. So another thing we also do is we extract essential oils. So this tank, this pasteurizer is also duly purposed to extract essential oils. So we take this copper tube and we connect it into this serpentine pipe and condenser, and we collect, instead of putting mushroom bags and substrate inside, we put plant material, aromatic herbs, and we can extract the essential oils that way. So that's one of the neat contraptions that we have here in the jungle lab. But now I'd like to take you into the clean room, the sterilization room, which has been just a whole field of exploration. You can see that it's just extremely clean, and it's got to stay that way. And nothing touches the walls because we need to clean behind the walls constantly in order to keep this room from growing mold. So we have a bunch of different plates and liquid culture and grain spawn. And we do have a small but very useful flow hood. So one of the best equipments, that's helped us is an Ozone Machine. which we have it automatically hooked up so that at night it produces ozone and helps keep the room free of mold spores and producing mildew. And that's really been a huge savior for us in cultivating the Amazon. And once we've inoculated our substrate bags, we store them in this incubation room, which we're cleaning out at the moment. And out here, we collect our different substrates from local factories and broomstick factories, coffee factories, sugarcane factories, and so we get a lot of sawdust and coffee husks and rice hulls and sugarcane bagasse. And depending on the mushroom and the purpose, somebody donated us this cement mixer, which Luis refurbished and got it back into action. And so that's really helped augment the production that we can make on a daily basis. And after incubation, we store our fruiting bags in this room, which is made out of scarfs and to augment airflow and oxygen. And again, we're cleaning out the whole laboratory in the moment, but this will typically have Ganoderma and Trametes species or other native oyster species, depending on what we're doing at the moment. So once we've harvested our medicinal mushrooms, or we've collected our essential oils, I come in here and I process. I process the primary material, and more than anything, we try and teach it in classes. Now, since the pandemic started, we've been teaching via YouTube and sending it through WhatsApp to all of the farmers and communities that don't have access to internet. So this is my shelf of goodies and laboratory glass gear for extraction, for essential oils or tinctures. And so I start to collect them and different plant materials and different medicines, different fungi and different carrier oils and oil extracts, which you can see are in the process of soaking and storage of primary material, and hydrosols as a byproduct of essential oils. And here we have just a collection of different Amazonian and Andean essential oils. So with these, we teach people we provide and we teach people to make different extractions, whether it's with essential oils and making skin salves, or it's making homemade medicine for immune system. And most of our products we try and provide to cancer patients in the region. So to transition into who we work with and collaborate with and why we do these courses, one of the collaborations that really inspires and motivates us is a collaboration with La Clínica Ambiental, the environmental clinic, and La Unión de los Afectados por el Petrolero Texaco, the Union of Affected People Against Texaco. So La Clínica Ambiental offers free permaculture courses throughout the region to impacted farmers and indigenous communities, and La Unión de los Afectados por el Petrolero Texaco, UDAPT, represent over 30,000 families and individuals that are that have brought a class action lawsuit against Texaco that's been going on for over 27 years. And together they've created these environmental, social environmental reparations committees, and And these are the networks that we try and that we participate in and exchange projects and knowledge and seeds and information. I'd like to show you something that to me is just so profound when you talk about true restoration, and that completely involves the participation of the local communities and inhabitants. And so with the Clínica Ambiental, I don't know if you can read this, but Proyecto de Reparación Socioambiental, Project of Social and Environmental Reparations. And so this is a certificate that I was given with Amisacho in our land, and it's called a waipala, and it's like an act of responsibilities and how we want to live every day and how we treat ourselves and our families and our community and how we participate in society. And there's different categories on whether we use agrochemicals and agrotoxins, whether there's domestic violence or violence against women, and whether you're involved with education in your community. And it's just really a special relationship that we all create, everybody who's participating in this network of permaculture farmers in the Amazon. And so because of this, we were able to create La Ruta Amazónica, the Amazonian route of hope and permaculture farmers. And it's an interactive, it's like a real passport. So you can come and participate in this route that goes from the Andes into the Amazon, visiting all these different permaculture farmers and exchange and interact with these people leading regenerative lifestyles to the contrary environmental degrading actions that we see daily. So it's really an act of unity to come and participate in this tour. Another really cool event that we all collaborate together with is called La Feria de la Esperanza, the Hope Fair, and it's this traveling hope fair that allows the mobilization of permaculture farmers and indigenous communities to travel to regional villages and share their products and mission and ecological produce. So little by little, you can see how all these different pieces and organizations and communities are collaborating together and just creating these seeds of hope and spaces and events that's everything. It's what we need to continue and support the environmental and social justice at the level of the communities. And so another project that we helped found is called Los Marianes del Sol, the Guardians of the Soil, which is in addition to the permaculture courses, an opportunity to delve deeper into the soil and regenerative practices, whether it's for reforestation and restoring ancestral food forests, or whether it's for food sovereignty and delving back into productive agriculture and productive gardens. And all of this depends on the health of our soils, which I always like to think about and make the connection between our gut health and the soil health. And we don't actually do the digestion of our food, but the organisms, the probiotics in our intestines, do the decomposition and deliver the food to us. So depending on who's populating our intestines really has so much to do with our mental health, physical health, and same with the soil. Whoever's populating the roots of the soil does the decomposition and delivers the food and nutrients to the plant. So whoever's populating the soil has everything to do with the overall plants and immunity and productivity. And so one of the things I've been delving into a lot recently is fermented foods and fermented soils. So if you've ever heard about Terrapreta, Terrapreta is the black soils of the Amazon that indigenous communities over 10,000 years ago lived upon these soils, where they had this reciprocity, this interactive experience with their soils, where, whatever they gave to the soil gave back to them. So studies show that in these Terrapreta black soil, they found meters deep of black, organic, carbon-rich soil. So why Terrapreta is so interesting, the Terrapreta soils, is because in the Amazon, throughout the Amazon, we have common oxysol soils, which are really high in really compact clay soils with a very thin, superficial organic matter layer. And that has a lot to do, those are just typical characteristics of the Amazon. With high temperature, you have high metabolism with all the microbiodiversity of fungi, bacteria, and soil dwellers who do all this decomposition and redistribute the nutrients back into the biomass of the lush jungle. So instead of storing it in the soil and growing deep organic soils over hundreds of years, it's immediately being drawn up into the biomass, right? So and also on top of the rain, and the heavy rains carry and leachate all the nutrients into valleys and riverways, and so it leaves the soils very poor of nutrients, poor of minerals, so to say. And so all these scientists and anthropologists have gone crazy studying these Terrapreta soils and for their thick, rich black carbon, and just trying to replicate what these communities were doing and how they interacted with their soils, because over 10,000 years, these soils continue to regenerate themselves. So the microbial community that's living inside of this carbon-rich black soil continues to form and provide more organic matter without anybody adding compost to it or compost-y. And so it's a really interesting concept of how living soils work. So this is something that people who are trying to replicate Terrapreta are really interested in exploring, and that's where I believe biochar comes into play. So biochar is biologically activated carbon or charcoal, and it's a method that a lot of people use in regenerative agriculture. So here we're exploring a lot of different ways to create biochar in different cooking methods and using different ferments to activate the soil biologically. So carbon is just it's like a sponge, right? It's like this structure that's just like this. Got these really strong walls and creates all these tiny, perfect apartments for microbes to colonize and live inside of them. And so if you add ground up charcoal to your soils without activating it first, it acts like a sponge, and it'll suck up all the nutrients that are in your soil and prevent them from getting to your plant, which can cause really, can deplete your soil. But if you activate it in some type of nutrient-rich medium, whether that's and ideally fermented so that it has our organisms already present on top of our nutrients, such as bokashi or forest microorganisms, or fermented urine, or compost, or worm leachates, or depending on whatever you have access to. So that's something that we're exploring, is what types of soil ferments can we inoculate our charcoal with and reintroduce in a living food webs back into degraded soils here, and try and replicate and reintegrate Terrapreta in our culture. So one of the things that I'm really interested in, like I mentioned before, are living foods. So a lot of food ferments are really they're lactobacillus ferments, which are probiotics for our intestinal communities, and are also well known to support plant biomes and support the rhizome, the health of the rhizome. So exploring different kimchis or yucca fermented beverages like chichas in the Amazon is a way that we're trying to reintegrate cultural practices like making fermented foods and reintegrate that into the culture by making fermented foods for soils. And you get what I'm saying? So trying to connect with the people and make them correlate the health of the soil and the health of our well-being, being intimately intertwined. One of the things that in the Clínica Ambiental, we always say that the health of our soil reflects the health of our skin, or the health of our skin reflects the health of our soil. So contaminated soils, with so many contaminated soils in our region, we also see really high skin cancer and skin irritation rates throughout the population. So, yeah. So now through the Guardians of the Soil with different collaborators and communities and organizations, a lot of us are working together to support these community-led soil centers. And here in Amisacho, the research that we do in the methods and the comparison studies, we're starting to replicate them with our community collaborators, and whether it's for their reforestation or whether it's for their gardens, and this is really exciting because it helps us figure out what methods are actually functioning, what is helping better the quality of the soil, to increase productivity, to increase growth rates in reforestation, to secure success in seedlings and in transplants, and provide nutrient-rich food, and in the long run, do the real work of carbon sequestration, because it's the living soil that stores and that behaves as a carbon sink. And when you get into fungal presence in the soil and active microbial interactions in the rhizome, we know that we're increasing photosynthesis in the plant, which overall augments the amount of sugars and CO2 that the plant is producing in its body and sucking in from the atmosphere, and redistributing that carbon in the form of sugars into the soil to its microorganism and symbionts. And so that carbon is literally being sequestered into the soil. And so the fact that we're losing living soils really and truly is alarming, and the most important land-based proposal towards climate change that we need to address. So outside of the laboratory, we have the soil center called Tibet. And here we do different research with soil regeneration and methods to return microorganisms and carbon back into the soil and regenerate degraded soils back into productive yields. So he's collecting bokashi that's been fermented for over a month. And placing into the bed with spent mushroom bags, inoculated carbon or biochar. We use different ferments to inoculate the biochar, and we mix it into the soil. Adding the bokashi and the biochar. Can you show me the biochar? What's it inoculated with?
Microorganismos, melaza,
Yeah.
y gallinaza.
So microorganisms, chicken poop, and molasses. And so adding carbon in the form of charcoal, activated charcoal, to your soil is a way to include aeration and restore structure to the soil. It's a way to include microorganisms and housing for them, a way to help aerate compacted soils, which also helps roots penetrate and also helps liquid and nutrients pass through the soil. And so since here we have a lot of really compacted clay soils or high sandy soils, it's a really good, important method to restore living and functioning soils. So here are different seed preparations and soil preparations to see what kind of soil amendments help augment plant growth, root growth, seedling, survival. And all these plants are going to have their defense mechanisms with the beneficial microorganisms planted directly in their roots. Entonces ahora cosechamos para llevar a la casa y hacer medicinas.
Yes, vamos a ver, vamos.
All right. Wow. We've got Lexie here with us live. Welcome.
Awesome to be here.
Yes, that was lovely. I really enjoyed getting to walk through your beautiful jungle with you and hear all the sounds of the jungle. Thanks for that experience.
Mm-hmm. I thought a virtual tour would be more interesting than me sitting here in the hammock.
Lovely. Cool. So let's take it away.
Yeah. Oh, well, I met Lexie a couple of years ago at the New Moon Mycology Summit.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was really just like blown away to meet you. And that was one of the most powerful experiences of the summit for me. And hearing about your story and working to reforest farmer cattle ranch land. And just that mission for regeneration is so powerful, right?
Mm.
We're up against these really impossible situations right now and things that are unraveling so fast. But then to really to hear what regeneration can look like, right? And reclaiming of land, making that back in the forest, it's so powerful. Would you talk more like about what the process was for reforesting on Misacho and like the family's vision for it and just like the larger journey that work has been.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, 12 years ago, my in-laws bought this land. It's located, like you saw, right outside of Texaco's old oil drill number 26. So that's what you would tell a taxi if you're coming to my house. You would say oil drill number 26. And you get out there and you walk down, and it just opens up into this rich jungle, which every time people come here, they're shocked because there's no more jungle left in Lago Agrio. It's really just a cement city and an oil boom town. But anyways, so they purchased the land, and it was completely cut down for cattle ranching, as you said, and they started to collect and plant a variety of different native trees for timber, fruit trees, and although they didn't know what permaculture was, or never even heard of the word, and my observations is just it's this the way that he's planted with the land and what trees he's grown where are relevant to kind of like their topography, geography, more like and so you see a lot of work preventing erosion. You see a lot of nitrogen fixers. What do we call them in English? Crops that cover the ground, and like different nitrogen fixing crops that complement bigger tree species. And so I've only been here for 6 years, but so when I came here, it was already so regenerated. And I remember seeing like the neighbor's land of monocultures, cacao, coffee, plantains, but also African palm, and then and just seeing the difference between the soil and just seeing it so dehydrated, desiccated, and that our neighbors consider that worked, and that's it's expensive, therefore, like because it's been worked and a lot of input has been put into it, but really that land is dead, which is why they have to continue to put so many chemicals into it. So when we come back and we look at Amisacho's land, you can see that the biomass from the trees growing and leaves falling and the nitrogen fixers and just the life that it's brought back into and the beetles that have returned to the soil and the worms, that just happens on its own. And so it's become a living soil again that will continue to regenerate itself. And there's even certain areas that I was told that when Texaco was operating in this drill, there was an explosion. So there's certain areas where like crude petroleum just splewed out.
Oh wow!
Exploded out, and so when you go to that area, it's just like encapsulated with just layers of plants growing around it, and organic material starting to do its work. And so it's just it's contained in its own way, and it's just an interesting natural bioremediation in the happenings. And so for me, like I guess as a biologist and starting to dig deeper into the world of mycology and soil ecology, I think this just living here with my family and learning from my in-laws has been more the real most practical experience that I've had in my life.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
did I answer your question?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that, so you emphasize in your talk the relationship between the soil and the gut, like, so that's sort of like an as above, like so below, like thinking of microorganisms on multiple levels. Would you like to say more about that?
Sorry, I cut out for a second. Relationship between the soil and
And the gut?
oh, yes. That's
Yeah.
my favorite. There's not a talk. There's not one talk that I give, even if it's not related to this at all, where I don't bring up the gut microbiome and the soil microbiome and just actually like bringing that knowledge back to everybody that, that's how plants digest. Plants digest through the bacteria that's in their rhizome, and just as we digest through the bacteria and other organisms in our gut rhizome. And a lot of them are similar organisms. So in the, throughout history, we've co-evolved to depend on each other. And so a lot of the ferments that we make for ourselves, whether it's kefir, milk kefirs and water kefirs and other fermented veggies and traditional chicha beverages in the Amazon. We make a lot of like metaphors to that to talk about chichas, which is this ferment, chichas for the soil. So we're in, especially with indigenous communities that drink chicha. It's the way that they prepare it is really a socially important tradition, intergenerational and communal. And and it provides them health, it sustains them, it nourishes them, and that's for thousands of years and generations. And so kind of reviving this concept of chicha for the soil and returning that same giving back that same nourishment to the soil and continuing to share a biome with our immediate environment. And so that's just like the dance of life that I'm so fascinated about, and the reason that I'm interested in getting more microscopic experience so that I can actually look at the difference, or at least try to, whatever I can, be able to interpret what's going on in these different ferments and the biochar, and what we can, taking our ferments and inoculating our charcoal to make it biochar, and actually seeing the differences that those microbiomes have on our plants, preventing pathogens in the plants, preventing pathogens in our bodies.
Wow.
So yeah, I think that's like reciprocity at its finest.
What is chicha again?
Chicha is like a fermented beverage.
Right.
So whenever I talk about ferments here, I call them chichas to make it relevant.
Okay.
So that everybody here like any type of fruit juice, you can make a chicha out of it.
Yeah.
So mainly it's a yuca chicha, or what is it in English? Cassave, tapioca.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's a tuber, a big root, and in a lot of communities they chew it up, spit it into a ceramic pot, and let it ferment.
Oh wow. How many people chewed it up and put it together?
Well, that's how mainly the women do it, and so like the women are prideful of who has the sweetest chicha. In certain communities, other communities don't have lost the tradition to chew it up. Yeah.
Cool.
Sometimes I'll chew it up.
Cool.
Well, while we still have you, would you tell us more about the other like regenerative projects that Amisacho is connected to? You were sharing with us before about when we were in the green room, Festival of the Gardens that's currently happening, and we were also, you mentioned in the talk the Guardians of the Soil. Would you highlight some of these other projects?
Yeah. So the Guardians of the Soil is it's like an advanced permaculture course where we're trying to actually just take it back to basics and really comprehend the ecology and structure and life in the soil, because that's where, you know, whether our final objectives are for remediation or whether it's for reforestation or just simply making a garden to harvest nutrient dense food, and the soil is, and the quality of our soil has everything to do with completing our objectives. And so Guardians of the Soil is an in-person course that we started right before the pandemic. And since the pandemic started, especially with indigenous communities and national or local neighborhoods and villages, people are really taking care and not leaving their houses very much, not leaving their communities to take care of their elders, since people live so intergenerationally here. They live with their elders. And so we've moved more to like an online course but most people don't have internet. So, but they do have cell phone plans and they have WhatsApp.
Yes. Yes.
So even we're making videos, short videos that can send via WhatsApp, and they can make it into the communities and really focusing back on soil and food production, since the pandemic, a lot of food chain and distribution has halted. And so that's how the Festival of Huertas, Festival of Gardens, La Festival de Huertas, started. So instead of people, because normally in our social events, we always do seed exchanges. In whatever workshop, people always bring seeds and knowledge to exchange. But since the pandemic, instead of making an event where people have to leave, my partner and I in Lago Agrio and other people in our teams in other regions are visiting the different people who have signed up for the festival, the garden festival, English. And so to sign up, you sign up with seeds. We go and visit you. We see what plants and diversity you have. We take your seeds and we give you seeds that you don't have. So everybody starts diversifying their land a little bit more. And then the seeds that you sign up with, we take and we deliver them to a different farm or a different garden. So everybody in the end is we call it a troike, is exchanging seeds. Troike is like any type of exchange or barter, and it's culturally important. So we're troikeando seeds, exchanging seeds for everybody.
Wow.
Yeah,
Good.
cool.
Wow.
So good. So we have about a minute left before we have to say goodbye for now.
What?
I know, it goes quick.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun, Gus.
Can I come back tomorrow? No.
You make it work.
Yeah.
So, any other things you wanted to touch on before she's got to go?
Oh my gosh.
I know
don't
so
even
much.
know what this is my notebook. These are my notes from Lexi's.
I don't know. I really appreciated learning about the Terrapreta. And you said whatever they gave to the soil, it gave back to them. So that reciprocal restoration, just right on point. You know, the whole point of why we're throwing this year's event. And when Robin first told me that we were going to go ahead with the event, and she had the theme, I was like, yes, that resonated with me so hard. I really liked hearing you talk about in your speech how you are incorporating the waste streams from like the local agriculture businesses for substrate. So
Right.
it's like this zero waste type attitude that is so much needed.
The same thing, not just for the mushroom cultivation, but also for making char and soil amendments.
Yeah.
And so we just gave a workshop this past weekend, and we took a whole bus full of broken broomsticks, because we have a broomstick factory next door, not too far from here.
Yes.
And so we we just showed up with wheelbarrows of broomsticks and turned it into char with everybody. It was cool.
Awesome. Great group project. Well,
but yeah, amazing theme, really important theme that for the Mushroom City Arts Festival, and just like what we were talking about, just life decisions in the way that we choose to participate in this world, you know, reciprocity.
Yes, yes. Thank you so
Mhm.
much, and I can't wait to travel again and come back and see you in Ecuador.